On the mountain where I was born, there are trees that would call my name. On the wind they would bring a song for every feral ear to claim. They'd say keep your eyes open, and we'll teach you to dream while you are awake. Well, they haven't spoken since their branches were broken for the fire that they told me to. Torn, there are words that I don't understand. All my elders, they tell me those ones were not read by human hands. Well, I just don't believe that's true. If the truth can be written, then the truth can be hid. Those words are commanding you. Though your body may grow old, in your mind you must remain a kid.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We are live this time. We're live a second time. The first time I was having some microphone issues, but I fiddled around with it, and I think all is well now. I'm getting good feedback from Streamlabs at the very least. But yes, how is everybody doing today? We got some good comments already talking about my microphone issue. Alpha Marigi says, in response to my reference to technology screwing me, insert sex robot joke here. Indeed. We're going to have those sex robots one of these days, and the world will be a much better place for it. Ponythroat has an interesting story today. He just received some imported Russian birch tar soap. He recommends it, but it also came with a package of mystery pills in a language I can't read. Is it Cyrillic, sir? Is it in Russian, or is it like Arabic or Thai or something? I would be a bit concerned about mystery pills coming in a soap box. I would recommend you take them to a pharmaceutical lab and get them investigated. Ponythroat says, Larsen with reduced fidelity. Yeah, I should probably move my microphone a little bit further away from my face. Alpha Marigi says he is an insomniac. That's why he's able to watch the stream. He woke up at 4:30 PST. I couldn't get back to sleep. But the upside is, you got a nice long day. Yes, I enjoyed a nice late sleep today myself. After a hard day of teaching at the schools, I got to sleep late today, which is to say I woke up at 8 in the morning instead of 6 in the morning. Yay. Anyway, the song we opened up with was Feral Roots by Rival Sons, and it seemed very relevant to me, what with Jimmy Carter laying in hospice now. Yes, because a song about being born on the mountaintops and talking to the trees, a rock song influenced by the old Weird America and Appalachian folklore, is clearly very fitting for a peanut farmer from the flat plains of Georgia. Yes, because those are totally the same thing. Yeah, it's all south of the Mason-Dixon. So yes, Jimmy Carter has come down with a chronic case of being 98 years old. And the Carter family has basically said that they are pretty sure that the paterfamilias is not much longer for this earth, so they're bringing him home to lay in hospice rather than being in the hospital. Hence the title of the stream, The Radioactive Peanut Man Goes to Hospice. Jimmy Carter, of course, a man who was simultaneously brave enough to be lowered into a nuclear reactor, but also enough of a wuss to get jumped by a rabbit. So the dichotomy of the Tidewater Plantation man is a complex and rich one indeed. Of course, Jimmy Carter, the Malaise man, the solar panel sweater man, history's greatest monster, according to the denizens of Springfield, USA. I've always had mixed feelings about Jimmy. Essentially, I'm going to take the mainstream view that, nice guy, crappy president. But hey, the Carter Foundation has almost entirely gotten rid of guinea worm in the third world, and god damn it, that's pretty good. Also, in some positive news, the video camera that I ordered in July of last year is finally allegedly going to be shipping to me in February of this year. In general, I like to buy one very nice birthday present for myself around my birthday. My birthday is in June. And they were short on supplies. This is a very nice camera from what I gathered in my research. It is the most professional quality camera you can get for under $400. HD, nice professional grade video camera. So I, of course, want to show my devilishly handsome face on my streams and videos, because from what I gather, the live streamers who show their faces, whether it be the cretins at America First or, PewDiePie or those douchebag Paul brothers, the guys who show their faces, they are the ones who get the most engagement and the most viewers and subscribers. So, hopefully I'll be able to get that in and be able to hook it up to my doohickey and get my face going. Unfortunately, I won't be able to, do my streams in a bathrobe while chugging coffee and eating cheap cornbread like I usually do. But that's a small price to pay for making those internet grifter dollars. So yeah, it was nice to talk about some good news and talk about a nice man and a mediocre president, because America really got in the shorts this week. Well, if it was not a good week for Colombia, the land of the free and the home of the brave. In fact, things are pretty crappy all around the world. But yeah, let's start with America first. So, on Twitter, apparently today is supposed to be a National Day of Hate, according to some extremely online internet neo-Nazis who I'm pretty sure don't even have a presence on the outside of the internet, I should say. Allegedly, they're going to be targeting Jewish people. I'm totally sure that this is a real thing and not just, some Fed nonsense that they're using to, honey trap the morons that would actually be into this sort of anti-Semitic hate. I mean, I haven't heard of any crime so far, but the day is still pretty young. So let's see. Let's see what's going to happen. Allegedly, a group of neo-Nazis from Iowa started this. Yes, I'm sure it's like, at best, 5 guys in a basement. And at worst, I'm sure it's a bunch of glowies. Because the CIA gentleman glows so bright, according to that strange internet man. All right, so the stream is going to last at least an hour, probably more. So let's see if anything comes of this day of hate. It's just like that Patriot March, which totally wasn't full of FBI agents undercover. But let's check out some comments, shall we? Pony Throat talking about his weird, boner pills that he got in the mail. It appears to be Cyrillic. The package does look like a legitimate product. Yes, I would definitely take that to a pharmaceutical lab. And then Pony Throat refers to the Day of Hate. And he also feels that it glows. Yes, this is very much a glowing situation here. I mean, I highly doubt this is going to be anything other than an FBI sting operation, which may still involve people dying. Sorry. I mean, the FBI has been known to essentially gaslight, hateful, low IQ losers into committing crimes just so they can act like they're doing something. But hey, the FBI and the Southern Poverty Law Center have to justify their budget. Got to justify their budget somehow. Okay. Rick says, will a Day of Hate have Emmanuel Goldstein appear on the screen before the president shows up? Well, yes, clearly. Hate Week, that is actually a concept from 1984, which, that's a very solid piece of evidence that this is not made by actual neo-Nazis, because the average neo-Nazi doesn't read, from what I gather. So I highly doubt they've read Orwell. And speaking of one, tyrannical ideology to another, let's talk about communism in America. More specifically, the teaching of communism in America. Because what happened was, and I quote, the teaching of communism in history class, that would apparently be subjecting Asian American students to anti-Asian sentiments, said Virginia Senator and Research Coordinator Emily Yen. The Virginia Senate rejects new curriculum on the dangers and victims of communism, because apparently this would be anti-Asian. Let's see. Now, there is some slight truth to this in that 4 out of the 5 currently existing communist regimes in the world are in Asia. However, I would also point out that the majority of victims of communism were also Asian, weren't they? You know, I speak for myself, of course, and my family, but many Asians that live in America are fiercely anti-communist. I mean, you would know this if you ever spoke to a Vietnamese person or a Taiwanese person or a Cambodian person or a Laotian person. And now that we're on the topic, have you ever spoken to Cuban Americans? They're actually pretty anti-communist, like for obvious reasons. But I'm sure they were just swimming across 70 miles of water to Florida just because they were happy. They were just so exuberant from communism they wanted to swim. I mean, who were the victims of the killing fields, the Cultural Revolution, the North Korean work camps? Pretty sure it was Asian people. And yes, of course, this is one of those moments where we have to pretend that, like, anti-Asian hatred is something wildly prevalent. Well, I mean, it is actually, but as we all know, it's not, khaki, short-wearing, white dude bros that are committing the Asian hate. It's another demographic we're going to be getting into a little bit this stream. It's another demographic. And of course, they stopped with the Stop Asian Hate hashtag the second that they figured out who was committing the Asian hate. But we already know that. Ponythroat says China is basically communist in name only. North Korea is the only country that is legit communist. Yeah, I mean, North Korea is some kind of weird, like, honestly, I would say Korea is more like national socialist, if anything. Not literally Nazi, but sort of a racially based communism. And, I think Vietnam and Laos are also ostensibly communist at the very least. Then, of course, Cuba is communist basically just out of spite. I mean, there were brief murmurs of Cuba opening up, but that ain't happening. Yes, as usual, racially based nonsense is afoot in America. So first of all, let's talk about the black people. More specifically, remember our nuclear drag queen? Speaking of nuclear people, and much more inferior to Jimmy Carter, Sam Brinton, yeah, in one of his, little shoplifting jags from the mall, the airport baggage claim, one of his victims of shoplifting actually made a post about it on Instagram. And Azyak Amson, a Tanzanian lady who's a fashion designer. She's a pretty stylish lady. She's got a nice little pink dress going on. And Sam Brinton actually stole her clothes and gadded about in pictures. And she was a bit upset about this, and she made a post on Instagram talking about her clothes and her, fashion line being appropriated by this bald white man. I mean, the pictures are all here. In fact, since I am now ostensibly a knowledgeable stream man, I will, in fact, be uploading these pictures to the stream. Okay, so here comes picture number 1. Yep, I'm going to slowly fumble around. Okay, I don't... Well, that's unfortunate. Okay, so that... Right, because Twitter's like GIF-fifths. I gotta remember that. I changed it to PNG, like a nice, sensible image file. So, here we go. Stumbling and fumbling. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, that's way too big. Yeah, so here is Sam Brinton and the Tanzanian lady whose clothes he stole. Ponythroat says he is an average degen. Yes, he sure is. Alright, so that's enough of Sam Brinton's weird Clint Howard face. I need to get that off my damn stream. Okay, Biff Slankovich says, what about Heisenberg and Breaking Bad? Are they going after him? The supply of blue will fall in New Mexico. I'm not sure what you're referring to, sir. Are you referring to Ponythroat's weird boner pills? I don't know. Anyway, the point is, say what you will about Jimmy Carter. I would rather have him in charge of our nuclear power than this cross-dressing weirdo. Will Sam Brinton be punished for it at all? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, he's not going to. Anyway, I do hope that Mrs. Amson gets her stuff back. She seems like a nice lady. Certainly doesn't deserve to have some bald degenerate steal her clothes. But speaking of the adventures of black ladies, something mildly amusing happened. Henry Gates, of course, has that show on PBS called Discovering Your Roots, in which they do DNA testing of famous people and talk about their family history. It turns out that, amusingly, none other than Angela Davis has ancestors who were colonizers. They came on the Mayflower. They owned slaves, and better yet, one of her ancestors actually set free one of his slaves and married her. He bequeathed all his land to her once he was dead. So, she, in fact, has colonizers in her blood, and frankly, I'm going to demand reparations from her. Which is funny because, actually, there were no black slaves on the Mayflower. There were some indentured servants, but no black people. Ms. Davis was a bit surprised at this, but I found it very amusing. At some point, I feel like I should probably do one of those ancestry things, because apparently you find some pretty big surprises in your family history. Who knows what any of us would find? Anyway, this led to a bit of a Twitter thread talking, of course, about slavery reparations. And you know, I've mentioned this before, but the Washington Post actually calculated how much wealth would have been generated by African slaves throughout American history. It averaged out to about $1.2 trillion. Now, by my estimates and by my cursory research, there's about 40 million black people, or more specifically, 40 million ADOS in America today. Because obviously, we're not going to give reparations to some guy who got off the boat from Ghana in like 1995. That would be a bit unfair. So yes, looking specifically at the ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, there's about 40 million of them. So if we divide, do a little mathematics here, my Asian sense is tingling, $1.2 trillion divided by 40 million, that's going to come up to about $3 million for every black man, woman, and child who is an American descendant of slaves. And you know what? Larsen is feeling incredibly generous today. So you know what? I would actually be down for that. Give them their $3 million on one condition. Namely, like, the beef ends here. In other words, you cannot ask for and demand another penny. Like, this is it. White America has officially atoned for its sins. You pay it out, and that's it. Like, it's done. No more excuses. No more, grievance pimping. No more, chicanery. No more jury nullification. Like, it's done. Like, this is it. It ends here. In addition to that, we're also going to completely eschew the idea of hate facts. Statistics that are completely true, but are bad because they paint a bad image. We are going to sing educational attainment and crime rates and every other viable statistic that is meaningful to this particular discussion from the rooftops. It will be compiled in books that will be on the New York Times bestseller list. It will be heralded from, television like PSAs. It will be sung by every person in America. If we do that, if we promise to do that, then yes, I would have a big smile on my face as I hand you your 3 million reparation bucks. But if you don't follow those exact conditions, Larsen Halleck does not approve of reparations. Can we do that? Because obviously I have the power to enforce this. If we do that, let's go. Let's give those reparations. Okay, let's see. Got some comments here. Alpha Marigi asks, was Sam part of the Biden administration? I forgot the story. Yes, he was a nuclear power czar or something. He did this in between doing weird spank seminars. My favorite senile president moment, says Ponythroat, was when Reagan expired in 2003. And the headline was Ronald Reagan's body dies. Yeah, yes, he had already died a long time ago mentally. Okay. Dave Slankovich says, Angela, you done us wrong, said Herbert Mark Hughes and Abby Hoffman. Ah, yes, the Frankfurt School. Alpha Marigi talking about my reparations plan said it would violate the First Amendment. Well, here's the thing. I'm not saying that, you can't ask for more. I'm just saying that as a culture, we would all have to point and laugh and tell them to get the fuck off the camera or whatever if they did ask for more. Free speech consequences. Free speech consequences, right? Ponythroat asked, can we deduct the amount of criminal damages caused by ADOS since then? Well, no, Ponythroat, but we would make the statistics widely known and widely available. The despite statistics, the 1364 statistics. Every man, woman, and child of every color in America would have those statistics drilled into their head. Rick says, I like how some people are happy when they find out they descended from criminals. I mean, I'm pretty sure we all have at least one criminal in our family history. But yeah, that Finding Your Roots show is actually really interesting. I didn't know Edward Norton went back to FFV. He was a first family Virginia colonizers. In fact, Rolf and Pocahontas are actually in his family tree. Also, I think Edward Norton was a very underrated Incredible Hulk. But that's a whole different issue. Anyway, yeah, so that's Larsen Halleck's reparations plan. Of course, we all know that I should be in charge of this country, but I'm not. So yeah, speaking of the ADOS, a certain incident happened in Florida, and this is obviously very important to me, being a teacher and all. At the Matanzas High School somewhere in Florida, which is pretty fitting considering that Matanza, doesn't that mean murderer in Spanish? Anyway, a female teacher who looks like a nice lady, probably about 140 pounds, very small lady, was brutally assaulted by a 6'6", 270-pound special education student. She took away his Nintendo Switch. He was really mad. This giant sped literally runs up to this woman. Here I am. I'm doing a play-by-play. So he runs up on the woman, just basically clothesline her. She goes limp. He then proceeds to stomp her and punch her and kick her about 15 more times while a security guard slowly walks up to the kid and then drags him off. The kid then gets a few more kicks on the woman's basically dead body while they really just softball this fucking kid. So apparently the teacher, didn't die. The kid, I only know this because the kid did then say that he was going to come back and kill her. Man, that must have been a really good Nintendo game. I mean, I don't know what game he was playing. Like, what was it, Breath of the Wild? I mean, it's been a minute since I've played any of the Zeldas, but I'm pretty goddamn sure that beating women is not part of the game. In fact, in Ocarina of Time, you can't even kill the Gyarados warrior women. You chop them up a bit, and then they retreat. They're the only enemy that you can't explicitly kill in the game. So, our boy Link, he's a man of chivalry and honor. He doesn't hurt women, but this kid apparently didn't get that message, and he kicked this teacher's ass. I mean, this woman is just limp. Like, it's really disgusting to watch. And, yeah, I'm going to refer to the kid as a sped, okay? Screw that. Like, people think, like, special ed kids are just, like, they're all, like, innocent, like, Ralph Wiggums. No. A lot of them are just feral goddamn animals. I mean, look, I teach in the schools, then I teach music lessons. A lot of I've worked with, special ed kids of both stripes, and some of them are wonderful. You have kids who are autistic, Down syndrome. They're very sweet kids, and I really do like working with them, and they're nice kids. And some of them are these goddamn animals. Like, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Yay, Larsen's story time. So back before I got my teaching certification, I was subbing in a certain school that will not be named. A school that, has a very large population of basically incorrigible kids who are one step away from juvenile hall. And I almost saw a situation exactly like this. I mean, I saw a teacher get up in a woman's face, and, he was one of these, brap kids. He's like, yeah, man, you want to die? I can kill you right now, brap. Just, I actually intervened along with some security guards, because, when a 230, this kid was slightly smaller than the kid in this video in Florida. The kid I was dealing with was, bigger than me, I'll tell you that. And, when I see a 220-pound sociopath telling a woman that he's going to kill her, I tend to take that seriously. Then the kid started threatening me and the security guards, and thankfully, we had to call the police, got him out of there. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's almost a certainty that this kid at the Matanzas school in Florida has said brap at least once in his life, or, makes random cow noises like the feral goddamn moron that he is. I mean, this is what happens with the kids nowadays. Like, I'm sorry, I fucking hate kids like this so much. Like, again, like, I'm not talking about special ed kids in general. Like, from what I can see, it's like, you got two kinds. You got, like, the nice, like, Ralph Wiggums, and you got the brap, animals. And I'm trying to say this delicately and not just, like, go off and just be extremely angry. Like, how do I even put this? Like, there's so much goddamn, like, education anger that I'm, like, trying to control right now. Then you have these fucking, like, weesh. Okay, first of all, the goddamn security guard, like, slowly walks over. Like, the kid is... I'm watching the video again, because I'm torturing myself emotionally. Okay, so, clothesline. Kick. That's 2 attacks. Then punching. 1, 2, 5, 6. I'm sorry. Okay, so... Yeah, the kid has already punched the teacher like 12 times, and the security guard at no point runs over. He slowly ambles over. Like, come on, dude. A woman's, like, being murdered in front of you. Like, do something. then you got these candy ass like administrators who are like, oh, you can't know they're innocent little babies. They can't do anything. Like, oh no. And that's exactly what happened in this Matanzas case. You have some liberal, like middle-aged white woman, of course, who's like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, oh, he's an innocent child. And not to go into too much detail, but at that school that I was subbing at, the principal, this little pencil neck fucking like closeted homosexual, what? He like gets mad at me. He doesn't yell at the kid. He's like, oh, you're just a sub. You're not certified to like restrain the children. I didn't lay my hands on the kid. I just put my hands up, not even like in an aggressive, boxing way, just a defensive way. Because, after he was done threatening that female teacher, this little brap, well, not little, but this brap shithead was threatening me and the security guard. So, I had to quit that sub job before I got fired. Boy, this really makes me want to just take a baseball bat to the side of some heads. First the brappers, and then the Weish administrators. Oh boy, yeah, this country's going to hell in a handbasket. Okay, let's see. We got some comments here. Alpha Marigi says, my dad found some fake land deeds from a swindler ancestor of ours. That's pretty funny. Speaking of my ancestry, I do know that on my maternal side, the Chinese side, that ancestry goes as far back as, one second, I'm getting a text message from somebody. It's my dad. I wonder what he has to say. Probably some work-related thing. Yeah, so anyway, my ancestor, my mother's side, was some Ming Dynasty bureaucrat, which is cool. So I guess at some point he did the, traditional Asian thing of studying his ass off and getting a bureaucrat job. I mean, it's cool in theory. I hate bureaucrats. I mean, I'm sure at some point I had, like, shit-kicking rice farmers in my ancestry. And I know that my family on my father's side is a family of butchers, in old Europa. So I only know as far back as about the 1800s with them. But yeah, ancestry's cool. And then talking about the Matanzas thing, Ponythroat says, it's the Uvalde school of tard wrangling. Tard rage strikes again. Yeah, you really don't want to take away those Nintendo Switches away from the morons. Now, bear in mind, like, some of my kids in school, they bring their Switches. And, I'm a cool teacher, so I do let them play in class if they finish their work. And I think that's pretty fair. Okay, because I'm all for, like, I'm pretty lenient. Like I say, if you play your video games with your sound off, you can play video games in school if you finish all your work. But this kid, that's not what happened. Alpha Marigi says people made the joke about him being the least insane Nintendo fan. I would feel like Chic Yo from Last Wave. I'm playing my Vita right now. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with playing your Nintendos or whatever. I mean, I would like to play Nintendo Switch, but I work 2 jobs. I just don't have the time for video games, which is a shame because the Switch has some really cool games. It's got Breath of the Wild. It's got No More Heroes. There's going to be a new Zelda. I don't have the time. Ponythrow then says, this sounds like a crappy school, although I imagine it was an altogether more common genetic defect responsible for low IQ and violence than the Nintendo Hulk back then. Well, yes, the school is pretty crappy. Crap schools are crap for a reason. Well, several reasons, actually. We were basically not allowed to, like, discipline the kids. Not physically, of course. I'm not at all going to be physical But it's like the kids are acting up. You can't even like raise your voice at all. You shouldn't, but you gotta lay the law down. Vislankovich says you saw the police and security creep to the Uvalde school during the shooting. Yes. Like, again, we really need to like weed out the candy asses from security and police work. I mean, I don't know. When I see women being threatened, I take action. When this school security guard, who is allegedly a former Marine, might I add, sees a woman being beaten almost to death, he slowly ambles over to try to help her. Then a little bit of a discussion about Europa. The moon Europa is older, but not as old as the Chinese dynasties. Yeah, it's a damn shame that the Chinese Communist Party literally destroyed all that classical Chinese culture and heritage. Yeah, it's what a pity. But yeah, like I said, my family history only goes back, by my knowledge, to about the 1300s on one side and the 1800s on the other. I would like to possibly learn more in the long term, even though I'm 90% sure that ultimately it's all going to go back to like just a couple of shit kickers on either side, whether they be shit kicking in China or shit kicking in Germany and Poland. That's shit kicking all around. Anyway, yeah, let's that was a nice distraction from this terrible, terrible story. And of course, people on Twitter are defending this kid. It's like, oh, there's more to the story than just teacher takes away video game. I bet there was racism. Yeah, I'm sure that this, 130-pound teacher, bullied and antagonized a 270-pound man. Let's be honest. I'm sorry, but like, America would be instantly made better if we just, smacked around, brappy a little bit. And again, I want to clarify, this is not a racial thing. There's plenty of white brappies. There's all kinds of brat people. They all need to be, smacked around a bit. But just, yes, in this particular case, the student happened to be black. Yeah, I bet this kid ate breakfast that morning. Hope somebody got that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people question, what I mean when I say, brap. I discussed this last week, but I have to clarify. It's literally like these, feral, low-class people will literally, again, of all races, they just make noises for no reason. I just don't understand it. Like, I guess my IQ isn't low enough to understand, like, what's amusing about just making, like, random wordless noises at all hours of the evening for no reason. Speaking of, there's also a video on Twitter of another brappy just walking into a subway in New York and just spraying everybody with a fire hose. I'm sorry, fire extinguisher. Those things that shoot out carbon dioxide and literally suffocate people. Some people say we need to get out of cities. Well, no, you know what? Screw that. Cities should be places of culture and education and learning. They should not, Western people, we don't have to live this way. We don't have to live in, like, cities filled with, like, screaming derelicts and garbage. I don't care what the World Economic Forum says. We don't we don't have to live that way. Boy, I wish I was the president. I could take this country back from the brappies. Then I'm actually going to have a long discussion about this, which I actually found very interesting in a philosophical sense. Let's talk about some comments first. Okay. Mr. Deeds, referring to the Matanzas thing, says that the, ex-Marine is a security guard who thinks he's a correctional officer. I mean, I'm going to wager this guy was like a secretary or something in the Marines, or he was like doing laundry. He probably goes to bars and tries to get people to buy him free drinks for his service. Because, guys who are actually on the front lines, who I have known, like, they would not have acted this way. Alpha Marigi says, my ancestral knowledge goes back pretty far. Well, it wasn't my doing. My dearly departed grandfather on my mother's side, he did do like a pretty big genealogy project in his own time. Wasn't at all my doing. Ponythroat asks about the kid in Matanzas. He was a sped, but he was also black. But again, the kid at the sub school that I was at who almost attacked the teacher, I mean, he was white, so there's plenty of shitty kids of all races. Ponythroat says, should it be legal to use a cattle prod on brappies until they shatter their pants? No. I don't want to use weapons on anybody. Well, that's a lie. What? Sorry. I mean, they should be restrained, and frankly, I mean, when a kid's like built like an NFL linebacker, I mean, maybe you should use slightly stronger methods to restrain them. Anyway, this whole discussion of the sad state of America was actually pretty relevant to what happened to me just the other day. So, as I told you all, I have a new lady friend, and she's actually not from this country. She is Dutch. Well, actually, she's fucking South African, bruh. But yeah, she's of Dutch ethnicity. But yeah, she's studying in America, and apparently she's in some kind of program about with exchange students. And she asked me a question. She asked me, "What does the American dream mean to you?" I found this discussion very interesting. I mean, you might not. But looking at all this shittiness going on in America right now, I thought it was pretty relevant. I mean, this is basically something I talk about a lot and think about a lot, the state of this country. The phrase, this fucking country, is a catchphrase of mine for a very good reason. Anyway, thinking about the American dream, traditionally I felt that it meant that one could reinvent themselves and work hard to achieve their goals without these stifling old world constraints of caste, creed, and class. But, as I have discussed, I mean, nowadays it's a phrase that just makes me want to put my fist through the wall, because it seems to me nowadays like slap-ass morons are like, yeah, I should get stuff for free. I should be famous without having any talent and fill the world with degeneracy and moronity. Or it means, well, we should just give amnesty to tens of millions of illegal immigrants because, America's just a natural resource that everybody can exploit. Derp, derp, American dream. I suppose it's poetry that the traits that made this country great are the ones that are going to kill the country. Like any Greek tragedy, the traits that make the hero great are what destroy him in the end. I mean, I've discussed this before, but I'm 100% serious when I say that one of the biggest mistakes in this country's history was Jefferson changing Locke's phrase of life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because you know what? Property means something, okay? Pursuit of happiness doesn't mean anything. So basically, this is what you got now. Like every ham-fisted, brappy is like, I should be famous and successful because, the pursuit of happiness to her, der. And you see, my little Afrikaner lady, that's why America has more Nobel Prizes than any nation on Earth, but it's also why America invented reality TV and Cheese Whiz. And of course, this ties into me being a teacher. For obvious reasons, the state of this country and its culture and life ways is what greatly concerns me. She then said that she believes that the American dream has greatly decreased in recent times due to unrealistic and unreasonable expectations, which makes striving for something much harder. And I felt that this is also pretty accurate. The wage slavery that exists thanks to Reagan deregulating business means that even people who follow the rules or work hard, they can't go anywhere or amount to anything. I have discussed this probably on my website, not on the live stream, that the actual power of wages in this country has essentially stagnated since 1979. I mean, I discussed this before, how, just 40 years ago, the life that the average American lived is astoundingly different from what it is today. I mean, you had shows like, I know I've discussed this, like The Simpsons and Married with Children, which, were supposed to show, middle-class mediocrity and degeneracy, but you still had, a man supporting a family on his own income and, living in, a house with cars and stuff. And nowadays, you can't have that. So then, my girlfriend is like, obviously I can't relate with the American dream. It's foreign aspect here. But, I always feel that the U.S. is presented to us, meaning foreigners, as a great altruistic superhero when there's many problems, just as much as any other country, like poverty and discrimination, blah, blah, blah. Whereas with me, your host, it's a deep, burning anger when I think about the country I was supposed to have but was taken from me before I was born. And, somehow America manages to be a hegemonic empire. I'm surprised I pronounced that right the first time. But also an ox being taken advantage of by other countries and corporations. I don't know how we pulled it off, but we did. Yeah, there's a little bit of truth to the altruistic superhero thing. I always like to talk about the Marshall Plan and Norman Borlaug and his third world, agricultural revolution thing. But let's be honest, a lot of that heroic image is lies and chicanery for the military-industrial complex to sell their garbage. So, looking at this school situation now, comparing it to, days of yore, when I look at what America used to be, my conclusion is that essentially it was a great nation which had one massive, glaring problem, which is the racism and prejudice. Fair enough, that was a legit problem, that was bad. Now, I don't know why we couldn't just fix that one problem and continue that greatness, but instead we kind of sort of half-assed fixed the problem, which is to say we handed the reins of the country over to woke grievance mongers and race pimps, and we created a julienne of new problems. Maybe the almost great but racist, but functioning America, and the garbage, clownish, woke insane asylum that America currently is, maybe these are both expressions of traits that are inherent to the American character. 20th century America was not perfect, but both parents didn't have to work 12-hour days just to keep a roof over their head. The average man wasn't forced to do little wagey shuffles to keep their jobs. The streets of every American city weren't full of screaming derelicts and staggering fentanyl users. Teachers weren't getting beaten to shit in school. There wasn't school shootings, and so on and so forth. I've mentioned this before, but there's a YouTube channel I really like. It's called Voices of the Past. Primary first-person accounts from history. One was a Chinese communist defector from America. He basically says, very similar to what I'm saying. He admires the work ethic, the production, the military prowess, the prosperity, the fact that nobody starves or is unemployed. But, I mean, he does say that, as an Asian man, he faced racism and discrimination. And that is what kept America merely at the good level instead of truly great. Well, that and the fact that he feels that American women were too skinny. And yeah, imagine that. That was a problem back then. American women were too skinny. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I see videos of the La Sierra gym class program of the 60s, the windswept eternal spring of California, 1960s California, where people dressed well and buildings were beautiful, and an entire high school class looks like the Navy SEALs. I mean, do you blame me if I shake my head at what we've lost? As we all know, a sizable portion of the United States just has massive amounts of cultural cringe. Like, they hate themselves. They idolize other countries and worship them and demonize everything about America. I don't think that's right. But then again, I'm not a flag-waving bootlicker, thin blue line guy either. The America that put a man on the moon, won the war and helped its enemies back on their feet, won 406 and counting Nobel Prizes, and created, Pulp Fiction and rock and roll and all that stuff, that's a good country. The America that's, full of giant fat asses, watches reality TV and TikTok dances, can't find itself on a map, beats the shit out of teachers, knocks over third world countries at the behest of corporations and other countries, that country sucks ass. Can one be extricated from the other? I don't know. I mean, I was born in 91. At that point, America was basically running on fumes from the highs of the mid-century, but it was still pretty good. A man could still support a family on his own income. I mean, it was going away in the 80s, but it was still prevalent enough in pop culture. I mean, I guess I'm thankful that I had a brief taste of, the last halcyon days when America was a functioning country. And then 9/11 killed it. I mean, I discussed this a few weeks ago. A Princeton University study literally showed that what the American people want has basically no effect on the actions of our politicians. I also dimly recall that some guys in American history they fought a war over taxation without representation. I mean, I don't know who they were, but whatever, they're probably racist or something. And come to think of it, that might be why all of American history is disparaged in school. Because if you focus entirely on how evil and racist it was, which admittedly there was some truth to that, that way you can just sweep it under the rug and ignore the good things that they did. Like, the idea that the government should do what the people demand. And having a large standing army is bad. Anyway, the point is, the suck in America is both top down and bottom up. The corporations that own the country squeeze from the top. Then you got the feral brappies, the ones who make cow noises. They're pushing up from the bottom. And the good people are trapped in between. Yeah, one of these days I'll figure out how to tear this country away from the defense contractors and grievance pimps and breakfast cereal manufacturers. Okay, that was a very long rant. So let's talk about let's see what the comments say. Alpha Marigi isn't having to deal with tards what inspired a white guy to popularize Aikido in the West. Wait, you're not talking about Steven Seagal, are you? Because I mean, if that's actually what popularized Aikido in the West, I would be greatly amused by that. Pony Throat makes the inevitable Dutch oven joke. Alpha Marigi says the American dream is getting a job that can allow one to afford to buy a nice house near a coastal city. I mean, I've never been one to be a keeping up with the Joneses guy. But the way I always interpreted it was, the freedom to reinvent yourself and live your best life without caste, creed, or class. Pony Throat makes the George Carlin reference. It's called The American Dream. Just got to sleep to believe it. Now get back to work, wagey. Mr. Deeds says the American dream used to be what you made of yourself. Now it's what you get from the country. Indeed. Ponythroat says the South African dream is to get out of South Africa. Yeah, that's the dream of a lot of third world countries, actually. And I don't mean to hammer the point home, but if you want to see the future of America, you might want to look at South Africa or Brazil. I mean, let's hope it's Brazil. That's the better choice. Brazil has good steak. Anyway, Ponythroat says, beating up the mentally disabled does seem like something Steve-O would do. Yeah, I don't know what white guy who popularized Aikido you're referring to. I mean, I am going to have to assume it's Steven Seagal. I mean, I think that's still who anybody associates with Aikido. And finally, wait, nah, actually, let's not do that. It's kind of pop culture related. We'll get to that later. But yeah, America sucks, but guess what? Other countries suck too. England. Come on, England. Has released a list of works of literature that are warning signs that your, son or boyfriend or husband or whatever is a far-right extremist. What are these works of literature? Beowulf, The Canterbury Tales, The Lord of the Rings, Shakespeare, Paradise Lost, The Bridge on the River Kwai. So in other words, fundamental works of English literature that shaped the English language are hateful, extremist works, according to the British government. Well, gee, I own all those things, so I guess I'm a far-right extremist. Herb-a-derb. So, yeah, I guess reading good books is, bad now. Well, yeah, I guess so. And you know what else is a sign of being a far-right extremist? Not smelling bad, apparently. And I quote directly, if this Twitter thing would ever load. Here we go. The Guardian says, do you hate body odor? You're more likely to have right-wing views. And I thought I hated body odor because I used to work in a restaurant. But So yes, according to The Guardian, bad people read books and take showers and wear deodorant. Good people are smelly and don't read books. Oh, and let's not forget that working out is also far right-wing extremists, so don't exercise either. Huatui Gardina in Gardigum. Okay. Alpha Marigi says Brazil mentioned, as the meme says. South Africa mentioned too. Ponythroat says, with regards to the British government thing, it sounds like a good reading list. Oh yeah, I mean, I own most of those books. I've seen the movies, A Bridge on the River Kwai and The Great Escape. Okay. Alpha Marie says that apparently the guy who popularized Aikido was not Steven Seagal, but it was a psychologist. Well, don't be so sure that Steven Seagal is not a psychologist. I mean, as we know, he's a special forces, helicopter man who can telepathically speak to dogs, and he's a deity according to a very totally not corrupt Tibetan Lama. So don't you dare doubt Steven Seagal's psychological credentials, sir. Alpha Marigi then shifts gears to talk about the literature thing. Anything that isn't paused garbage is far right. Ponythroat asks, what's far right about Lord of the Rings? Well, to be fair, I mean, far right people do like Lord of the Rings. Varg Vikernes, of course, loves him some Lord of the Rings. But, there's nothing inherently far right about Lord of the Rings. Tolkien, very much hated the Nazis, and he was very much a philo-Semite. He liked Jewish people. He was not anti-Semitic. He was philo-Semitic. I mean, I guess what's far right about Lord of the Rings is that, well, it's a work of literature that is based on the, mythologies and folkways of Northern Europe. And, as we all know, anything Odinist is automatically far right. And also, I guess there is some classism in Lord of the Rings. The relationship between Sam and Frodo is explicitly written to be like that of a, aristocratic military officer, represented by Frodo, and his, common man, enlisted man, Sam. And that's kind of right wing, I suppose. But of course, that brings it to my next topic, in which there's going to be more Lord of the Rings, shite film adaptations at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is allegedly revamping the Lord of the Rings film franchise. That brings us right to it. I don't know why it had to be revamped. Like, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy is basically a perfect trilogy. And no, I don't want to hear any bullshit about Tom Bombadil, okay? Tom Bombadil sucks. The Hobbit movies were a little bloated. I mean, it should have been 2 movies, which was the original plan, but then the studio forced Peter Jackson to do 3. But they're still decent. And then, of course, Rings of Power is an absolute garbage show. So what is the revamping plans? I don't know. Let me get a drink of water. Kids love that water. Anyway, when they say they're going to revamp the Lord of the Rings film franchise, I'm hoping it means they're going to do the unfinished tales on the Silmarillion and Lúthien and Berold right. But that's not going to happen. No, they're just going to make it so, like, Sam and Frodo are an explicitly gay couple, and they're going to be hammering each other in the ass all up and down Mount Doom. I mean, it's just going to be the trilogy again. But this time, Sam and Frodo are bumming each other. Well, hey, at least in that one, you'll have a reason to put Tom Bombadil in. Heyo! Yeah, because Tom Bombadil, of course, if you put him in, you're going to have naked hobbits frolicking in the woods. And that's what the people want, apparently. All right, comment time. Honeythroat says, this is going to be shit. Oh, yes, it is. I mean, it's being taken out of the hands of Amazon, so I guess it's going to be slightly better than Amazon's, like, debacle, but it's still going to be shit. It's completely superfluous. Oh boy, let's reboot the entire film franchise that was done perfectly well the first time. We're going to make it slightly different so it's better. Because it works with superhero movies. Alpha Marigi is talking about the Aikido thing. He worked in a mental hospital. He went in to wrangle the tards. He didn't want to hurt them. So he learned fancy moves. I mean, it still might be Steven Seagal. I mean, I'm sure he's a alleged psychologist. I'm sure he claims it. Alpha Marigi says Sam and Frodo don't go to a boarding school. Well, again, they're supposed to be analogous to military officers and enlisted men, respectively. So bumming is... I'm sure it happened. But not in the books. I mean, military dudes. I don't know. I just always found that idea that like Sam and Frodo were gay. It's just really immature. Like they're modeled on military officers, or one officer and one enlisted man, which Tolkien saw firsthand fighting in World War One. I just think it's so immature that like you look at two men who have a close, brotherly bond, and you're just like, yeah, they must be fucking each other in the ass. Like, are you such a porn-addled retard that like you can't imagine two men having like a close, loving, brotherly bond without imagining them, bumming each other? Mr. Deed says revamp means adding intersectionality. Yes, it's for a new audience, which is funny because I'm pretty sure a lot of black people watched Lord of the Rings when it first came out. Alpha Marigi makes the inevitable joke. It was the army, not the navy. Yes. Alpha Marigi says, people who say lol gay, they don't value friendship. Yes, I've noticed that. I mean, I guess that's another nail in the coffin of like the decline of society that we don't have friends anymore, like same sex friendships. Everything has to be like just sexual nowadays. Nope, you can't have any kind of close emotional bond with somebody unless you're dicking them down. Anyway, speaking of the Brit bongs, it is official. Uh, Indian people officially own more property in the UK than English people do. So I guess this is colonization now. Sorry. A whole week of waking up early in the morning. It's my sinuses are all, never 100%. But yeah, anyway, Indian people are winning it. I guess they own more British property than British people. And, whatever. They got the money. You can pay for it. But I mean, if we can just acknowledge openly this is colonization, I'd really appreciate that. I just want some honesty. As much as I complain about America, Britain's getting it in the shorts too. And finally, not finally, but in terms of kind of racial insanity news, not only do America and Canada and Britain and France have to check their white privilege, but Tunisia has to as well. Yes, Tunisia apparently has white privilege. The president of Tunisia, Kais Saied, he believes that there's a plot to great replace his nation's population of Berbers and Arabs with sub-Saharans. He has ordered that illegal immigration be halted and migrants deported. Sub-Saharan Africans are claiming racism. The woke mind virus spreads even to third world countries. Now, for those of you who are not aware, North Africans, the more Arab descended ones, dare I say the Caucasian ones, they really, really do not look upon sub-Saharans particularly well. Not at all. The Tunisian president, on Thursday, this past Thursday, 23rd, he repeated his assertion that he was not racist, but an increase of migrants from sub-Saharan Africa is part of a conspiracy to change our demographics. Well, gee, I guess the MENA people, Middle Easterners and North Africans, better really get it official that they're not white, because otherwise, this guy's gonna get his white privilege dragged. I mean, the president of Tunisia basically looks like an Italian dude, to be quite honest. So, I mean, you could argue that he has white privilege, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Alpha Marigi, referring to the Indian thing, says reverse Uno on colonization. I mean, if you want to be technical, at no point in Britain's rule over India did they have more than like 200,000 people there. So I think there's more than that of the reverse now. Alpha Marigi says a poll was conducted in the old world. Would you be okay with your child marrying a black person? No was higher in North Africa than East Europe. Well, obviously they ain't gonna let their kids marry some, Abid, slave. That ain't happening. Whoops, I said a bad word. But going back to franchise news, we all know, Disney Marvel is complete garbage. So apparently the Hawkeye show had a fake, Captain America the musical scene as a joke. This is, of course, probably referencing the fact that there were plans for an actual Broadway musical of Captain America in the 70s, which never got off the ground. I have a picture of the advertisement somewhere. Wait. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yes, here it is. Hey, let me just pull this crap up. So yes, there was supposed to be a Captain America musical that never got off the ground. Marvel put out ads in the comics trying to cast, like, can I make this smaller, please? Whoops, not wrong one. Yeah, here we go. Cap's going to star in a Broadway show, and maybe you can star with him. If you are a girl between the ages of 10 and 14 who can sing, dance, and act up a storm, you might be just the person. Cap's looking for. Sorry, I butchered that one. You might be the person Cap's looking for. He needs a bundle of talent to play his very special friend in Captain America, a musical spectacle to hit Broadway next spring. Send a photo and background info to Linda Watson, West 57th Street, New York. Do it today. You want to let Cap down, would you? Boy, that totally doesn't sound like some weird Broadway producer trying to groom a little girl. Woof. Yeah, so anyway, yes, there were plans to do a Captain America musical, which didn't get off the ground because it's fucking stupid. Apparently it's going to star John Cullum. Oh, and Cleavon Little. Yeah, that's now I almost regret that we didn't get this. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, that didn't happen. But then as a joke, the Hawkeye show made a little throwaway joke as, like, Captain America the musical. But now at Disney California Adventure, they're going to actually have a Captain America musical. I mean, this is what we've come to, people. Like, we're so creatively bankrupt that we have to take jokes that are deliberately made to be stupid and make them real because we have no other ideas otherwise. Okay, I'm gonna get this weird groomer commercial off my stream now. Okay, Alpha Marigi says colonization is subject to inflation too, I guess. Yeah, I suppose so. Okay, Ponythroat says the exact same thing that I said. Dear 10 to 14-year-old girl, come to the Captain America casting couch. Become Cap's very own no-nonsense special assistant. Don't tell your parents. They will compromise your secret identity. Yeah, I guess it was a more innocent time in the 70s. And granted, the person that was going to be doing the casting was a woman, but as the Jeffrey Epstein case showed, women are more than willing to abuse little girls. Alpha Marigi says 14-year-old girls don't read cape shit. They read shonen manga, then complain about it being sexist despite shoujo existing for them. I mean, in the 70s, I think girls did read comic books more often. You know, I really regret that. Now I'm honestly regretting that we didn't get, like, the John Coleman, Cleavon Little Captain America show. I mean, Cleavon would be a better Falcon than Anthony Mackie, that's for damn sure. And speaking of garbage franchise news, franchises that are owned by Disney and going off the cliff, I happened to see a little Twitter post which showed just stacks and stacks and stacks of Mandalorian action figures on the shelf. They're in clearance. I mean, part of it's that these action figures literally look like garbage. I mean, like, why would you make a brown mud-covered action figure? Like, it doesn't look good. Yeah, now I'm trying to find this post. I typed in Mando action figures, and it's a bunch of, like, soy-faced nerds talking about, their Mando plastic pieces of crap. Let's see if I can find the actual post. But until then, doesn't matter because you got the idea. I mean, Mandalorian was okay, from what I hear. I mean, I haven't really been involved in the new Star Wars, more like Soy Wars, but probably because it sucked. I saw uh, Force Awakens. It was okay. Don't remember much of it. I saw Rogue One. I fell asleep in the theater, and after that, I just kind of I threw my hands up. I'm like, I'm done with this shit. And apparently, people are agreeing with me. Nobody's buying the Mando action figures. 1 second. Text message. And nobody's buying your Mandos. Nobody's buying Rey. I don't care how many baby Yodas and like CGI Beanie Babies you throw at the screen. Nobody likes this shit. And fun fact. In Variety, Liam Neeson says that Star Wars is hurt by so many spin-offs and products. It's taken away the mystery and magic. But what does Liam Neeson know about Star Wars? Not like he was in it or anything. I mean, I'm sure they forgot he was in Star Wars, just like that casting director actually forgot that Natalie Portman was in 3 Star Wars movies. But from what I hear, Mando was okay. It was just like when everything else is shit, Andor is shit, Book of Boba Fett is shit, Rogue One is shit, Last Jedi is shit, Rise of Skywalker is shit. I guess when you're subjected to just an unending torrent of garbage, something that's just okay looks great in comparison. I mean, when like the surviving cast members of uh the original franchise just don't give a shit anymore, as Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill have very clearly shown, I think it's time to give up the ship, guys. Like Disney, stop trying to milk this cash cow. Stop it. Please, stop. Alpha Marigi says Force Awakens might have been okay as a movie in isolation, but it undermined all the heroes' efforts in the OG trilogy. Yes, it sure did. And Shinseki Evans asks, Mando doesn't sell anymore? Apparently not. I mean, nobody bought like Rey action figures to begin with, from what I saw. Okay, Alpha Marigi said that the new Star Wars trilogy should have been about overcoming the challenges of being a ruling power instead of making the good guys the underdogs because of nostalgia. Yes, exactly. That's what I said in Force Awakens. Like, they're calling themselves the Resistance. Like, you're the government. What are you resisting? Yeah, but God forbid you, like, do anything interesting with that. I mean, I discussed this a while back about how, Finn, John Boyega's character, was such a waste of potential. Like, you literally could have just copied the movie Soldier with Kurt Russell and done that with him, and it would have been decent. But no, we got to have this pie-faced little girl just getting Jedi powers for no reason. Because fuck training and practicing and like having to learn. She's whamming, strong whamming. She can just get the powers when she wants. See, entitlement, it ties back to the American dream thing. Aha. Yeah, why wasn't Daisy Ridley's like fat face doing like one-handed handstand push-ups like Luke Skywalker did? Wait, too good to do calisthenics, woman? And finally, in celebrity news, rest in peace, Richard Belzer. Richard Belzer, best known for playing the Law and Order man, and also for being legit choked unconscious by Hulk Hogan on live television. Very funny comedian, good actor. He bounced back remarkably well from being strangled by a 300-pound bodybuilder. Rest in peace, the Bells. Okay, got some comments here. America could have been inspired by the New Republic, preventing all the bad stuff from happening in the first place, says Alpha Marigi. Ben Solo choosing not to turn to the dark side should have been the climax. Yes. There's many interesting things you could have done with the sequel trilogy. They didn't do them. Let's just have these weird phone sex sessions, telepathic phone sex between Rey and Kylo. Let's do nothing interesting with, Finn, the guy who's much more interesting than the strong whammon. And also, in Force Awakens, like, it's very clearly shown that the Empire is like a galactic rump state, and the New Republic, rules everything. Essentially, the New Order in the Force Awakens was like space neo-Nazis. Like, they were like basically like a gang, essentially, of terrorists. Then all of a sudden, in The Last Jedi, the New Order has like just been kicking the shit out of the Republic every which way. They become super powerful. Now the New Republic is, on the run. Well, gee, I guess that's what happens when you put the women in charge. Hi-yo. The force is female, right? Like, literally, in span of about a year and a half, you put the women in charge, and, your massive government just got its ass handed to it by a bunch of essentially neo-Nazi terrorists to the point where you're on the run. Bang up job, Admiral Cat Lady. Ponythroat says Richard Belzer was in the 90s Flash show. I vaguely recall watching that when I was a little fellow. But yes, rest in peace, Belzer. All right, so that very long stream does it for my prepared remarks. I had a lot to say because, I got very angry at the school thing, but I'm calm now. I'm good. If anybody has anything else to say, you can say it now. Okay, I'll give you a minute to say your last pieces. Okay, Alpha Marigi says, watch the anime Phi Brain Puzzle of God. Let me look that up right now. Okay, let's see. Kaito is a high school freshman who likes doing puzzles in his strange world of Phi Brain. He gets a strange device that sends him puzzles and directions to a location. They have to solve puzzles that are death traps. Okay, that's wonderful. Alpha Marie says it had 3 seasons despite nobody else knowing it existed. And here I am trying to push Space Dandy on people. All right, let's say our last pieces, please. Alpha Marie says he should rewatch Space Dandy. Yes. That show did not get enough love. Okay, and with that, I think we're done here. For Larsen Halleck, I'm Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.